Two police officers, dressed in their signature blue uniforms, pulled up to my garage in a marked patrol car. Concealed under the lift, I discreetly observed their arrival. It struck me as odd to see police officers wearing such cheerful expressions, but their demeanor quickly turned serious as they approached. After confirming my identity, they somberly shared unfortunate news about my wife. Something had occurred at our residence, and she was now in the hospital. However, the details remained unclear to them. In my rush to leave and gather more information, they intercepted me, demanding an explanation. Their inquiries revolved around my whereabouts during the past 3 hours, assuring them that I had been present at the garage all day. I suggested they consult my two mechanics for confirmation. Regrettably, I confessed to briefly leaving earlier around 11 o'clock in the morning to grab coffee for us all. While one officer engaged in conversation with Mike and Pete, the other officer recorded the coffee shop I had visited. He then requested to see my car. Without hesitation, I acquiesced and led him to my truck. He carefully inspected it before granting me permission to proceed to the hospital. As a hospital staff member narrated Kate's injuries, the need for a blood transfusion, and the ongoing surgery, a sense of apprehension filled me. The doctor's half-smile during our conversation struck me as unprofessional. Once I left the hospital, the same two officers intercepted me yet again, seeking further answers. We sought refuge in the hospital cafeteria, yearning for some much-needed caffeine. Their curiosity focused on my relationship with my wife. I explained that we had married relatively later in life, 8 years ago. Kate had successfully pursued a career as an attorney, delaying starting a family until she was almost 40. Curiously, they probed as to why she was home on a weekday. I clarified that Kate had recently quit her job to take a break before pregnancy, somewhat of a vacation before committing to at least a decade of domestic responsibilities. Concluding my explanation, I expressed my profound love for Kate and assured them that we were doing well and eagerly anticipating the arrival of our child. Their questions then shifted to John Barton. Denying any knowledge of him, they departed without providing answers. Trusting my team to secure the garage, I made my way home directly. To my dismay, I spotted two forensic scientists and a detective examining our house. Introduced by the detective, he explained what he knew and repeated the same inquiries as the previous officers, accompanied by a new one. He focused on the discovery of a few droplets of blood in the downstairs toilet. Uninformed about this, I expressed my confusion. In turn, I questioned the detective regarding the reason for their suspicions towards me and sought reassurance that they were actively pursuing other leads. Reassuringly, he insisted they had several leads and mentioned his colleague speaking with Mrs. Barton. Intrigued by the mention of John Barton, I inquired about him. Regrettably, the detective declined to provide any further information. As they withdrew, leaving me perplexed, I ascended the stairs to the master bedroom where an unfolding scene awaited me. Observing it, I recognized the profound shock I would have experienced had I been witnessing it for the first time. Earlier that day, around 10 o'clock in the morning at work, my thoughts had meandered towards intimacy. This was a normal occurrence. As they say, men think about intimacy approximately 67 times per waking hour. And for husbands estranged from their wives for a month, this number can double. Since Kate had taken a break from work, our intimate encounters, which used to happen 2 or 3 times a week, had now dwindled to almost zero. Kate's moods oscillated between sadness, boredom, and exhaustion. Personally, I attributed it to the fear of her old life coming to an end, the fear of the unknown. As a loving husband, I refrained from pressuring her, knowing she would overcome her apprehensions at her own pace. I understood that our life would change after having children, but I empathized with the cataclysmic transformation awaiting her. My thoughts then wandered to our early years of marriage, where intimacy knew no boundaries. We made a conscious effort to keep it exciting and fresh, relying on our imaginations until it became a routine like it does for most long-term couples. Shaking myself out of my contemplations, I realized it was time to take action. To reintroduce spontaneity, I decided to head home immediately and be close with Kate until exhaustion consumed us both. The decision was made. I informed Mick and Pete of my temporary absence, and before leaving, Pete requested if I could test drive a car he had just serviced. Returning home, a pang of disappointment overcame me at the sight of an unfamiliar car in the driveway. My friend's unexpected visit threatened to derail my plans. Nevertheless, I resolved to enter. Perhaps I could persuade my friend to leave and salvage my intentions. Without any suspicion, I opened the front door, and an immense wave of realization washed over me. I knew then that my marriage was irretrievably fractured. The unmistakable sounds of profound intimacy echoed from the staircase. Almost instinctively, I reached for my phone, ready to record the scene before me. It had become second nature to capture videos of clients' cars as a precaution against false accusations of damages. My heart was pounding as I ran up the steps, camera in hand, and cautiously peered through the bedroom door. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was Kate, and beside her, a man I didn't recognize, both blissfully unaware of my presence on our own bed. Suppressing the urge to react violently, I turned away. This was, without a doubt, the most challenging situation I had ever faced. My legs gave way and I collapsed outside the door, completely devastated. As I lay there, dimly aware of their betraying actions reaching their climax nearby, I couldn't tell how long I remained in that position. Eventually, the sounds of their betrayal ceased, replaced only by hushed conversations. It was just as painful, tearing at the very core of my being. Realizing I needed to think, I knew I had to distance myself from their voices. Reacting emotionally would only land him in the hospital and me in prison. Quietly getting up and tiptoeing downstairs, I slumped on the sofa, seeking solace away from the sights, smells, and most of all, the sounds of their betrayal. Free from emotional distractions, I did what I knew best. I devised a plan to get him out of sight, confront him, and swiftly remove him from our lives. Without any visible scars or witnesses, I hoped to avoid a messy trial. Luckily, back when I was in the Army Reserve National Guard, my skills had earned me the task of clearing trucks, where I had come across a small device that would be of great use now. These devices were known as stun grenades, slightly larger than regular grenades, with a lever pin ignition mechanism specifically designed for hostage rescue situations. While meant to cause minimal physical harm, the explosion was accompanied by a blinding flash with a power of 8 million candles and a deafening sound of 170 decibels. The flash alone was enough to temporarily stun a person for several seconds. Fueled by my newfound hatred, my mind quickly formed the rest of the plan. However, I couldn't risk causing damage to my own house by simply throwing a grenade on the floor. So, I took out the device, swiftly glued a short piece of rope to it, and attached a loop at the end. With the device prepared in this manner, I tiptoed back upstairs, realizing that secrecy was no longer necessary. The moans of pleasure coming from behind the bedroom door were crystal clear, leaving no doubts about what was happening inside. I paused only to pick up my phone from the floor, where I had dropped it, and cautiously peered around the doorframe. What I witnessed next was not exactly what I had expected. Amar, Anonymous, was lying on his back in bed, with clear evidence of damage below his waist. Nature had either been cruel, or something important was missing. Meanwhile, Kate lay on the floor, her eyes vacant, her mouth moving like a fish out of water. Confusion washed over me, and I retreated to the hallway to gather my thoughts. Suddenly, two horrifying screams erupted from the bedroom, followed by loud bangs and slamming doors. It became painfully clear that my plan had once again failed. Peeking into the chaotic scene, I saw the man stumbling out of bed, clutching his groin and howling in pain. Kate was nowhere to be seen, likely locked in the bathroom. We needed to eliminate any evidence. Returning to the room, I quickly located the detonator for the device and attached it to the rope. Finding nothing salvageable, I concluded that everything else must have been destroyed in the chaos. Cautiously approaching the bathroom, I saw Kate on her knees, vomiting into the toilet. I had no desire to assist her, I simply didn't care anymore. On my way out, I noticed something on the floor and picked up a warm, soft piece resembling a detached tongue. I discreetly disposed of it in the first floor toilet, knowing it couldn't be reattached. Trying not to make a sound, I hastily left the scene, grateful once again for the distance between our house and the neighbors. Halfway to the garage, I emptied my pockets into a roadside trash can. 10 minutes later, I found myself in my small workshop. I immediately called Pete and Mike, my loyal and grease-stained employees and friends. Sensing my distress, they rushed to my side, ready to support me. I asked them to provide an alibi for the past 45 minutes, and their agreement came almost simultaneously, though perhaps a bit too eager. I warned them of the gravity of the situation and explained that once they knew the full details, They might no longer be so quick to support me. I acknowledged the potential charges I might face and the looming possibility of imprisonment. Before I started explaining myself, I put on my old jumpsuit and wiped my face and hands with an oilcloth, preparing for the imminent arrival of the police, which I was counting on. The guys looked at me, a little stunned, as I summarized the latest developments. Mike was the first to break down, trying to hold out for 15 seconds before bursting into laughter. This infected Pete, and soon we were all laughing uncontrollably. It took us a full 5 minutes to come to our senses, and after shaking hands and promising support, they returned to their oil jobs. Over the next hour, the whole house was filled with unexpected laughter that came from various dirty rooms. My wife Kate was ready to face the consequences she deserved for avoiding my humble friends. In the evening, I cleaned the master bedroom, mopping the bathroom floor. I decided to get rid of the bedding and mentally marked myself to buy a new carpet. It was also necessary to remove the torn curtains. I tried to keep busy to avoid thoughts, but the constant phone calls and knocks on the door didn't help. Yes, the media was delighted. The mix of infidelity and loss of manhood was the perfect story for them. I opened the door only once and quickly turned off the phone. Finally, when there are no distractions, I started thinking, did I regret what I had done? Strangely, no. I despised cheaters and saw how many of them became unrecognizable when they caught their partners. By a strange coincidence, even before lunch, I was sure that my wife shared this passionate attitude. Being like that was wrong of me. Moreover, I was surprised by Kate's motivation. She seemed as devoted to me as I was to her, and our sex life was fantastic. At least, until recently. After many hours of internal anxious struggle, only one hint appeared in my head. Now I remember the awkward feeling I had 2 months ago, when Kate said she had decided to enjoy the last days of her freedom before the birth of her child. I thought she would work until the 7th month of pregnancy, so this statement seemed strange. My personal mobile device interrupted my thoughts. Few people knew this number. The caller ID name that popped up showed Kate's parent number. They lived about 3 hours away in the same state. I replied because I always got along well with them. After fewer greetings, Kate's mother got down to business. She asked if I knew why journalists were besieging their house and mentioned that sooner or later, they would have to find out. It was difficult for her to tell the details on this topic. Then she asked me if I had watched the local news in the evening, perhaps the main news, mentioning the story of a cheating woman decapitating her lover's dignity. I always liked her mother's vivid expressions and her outlook on life, but that didn't make our conversation easy. Yes, Mom, you know, it's very difficult to say, so I'll tell you straight out. The woman's name is Kate. Fortunately, my confusion was interrupted by a scream, followed by a call termination signal. When I pressed the end call button on my phone, I noticed a warning on the screen. It reminded me that I recorded the end of my marriage just 8 hours ago. I had vague memories of leaving my phone recording outside my bedroom. I knew that if I never found out or believed the reason why Kate did what she did, I would never be able to trust any woman. There was a very good chance that I would die a lonely misogynist, doomed to uselessness. With desperate hope, I started playing the video. I already knew what it showed. The pain was too fresh to relive the whole scene. I opened my eyes as soon as I put the phone on the floor. With no visual representation, just a view of the ceiling in the hallway, I had to imagine Mr. and Mrs. Treason lying side by side on the bed. I couldn't hear the sound well, so I downloaded the file to my computer and turned it on through an amplifier. That's the important part of their conversation. Kate, that was great. The past week has been great indeed. Does it have to end today? My suggestion is still relevant. Just give me your word and I'll divorce Sarah and marry you. Well, yes, it seems possible. A wonderful start to a marriage with a guy who abandoned his wife and children. No, and I love Dave too much to hurt him that way. Besides, he's an awfully good husband and will be a good father. After today, I will become a kitty, a housewife, at least until the youngest of our children goes to school. You can't love him that much. He's not lying next to you. No, you're wrong. I love him very much. From the moment we met, I knew that he was my only soulmate. I will never meet the same person again. I am happy that I have such a good husband who spoils me, and will take care of me when I have a big belly from his 2 or 3 children. No, I don't want anything more than to die with him in my arms, surrounded by our grandchildren. Well, it's a wonderful speech, but one obvious question arises. Why are you with me now? There was a half-minute silence. I think she just didn't have enough time. Having missed the excitement of being the center of attention at a bar and playing games with men, Kate decided to revisit her past and check out a local bar. Unfortunately, the experience was just okay and left her unsatisfied. However, fate had a different plan when she coincidentally walked into the bar where I was. And now, here we are. Kate seems distant and cold. This will be our final farewell. Why is she complaining anyway? Come here. I turned off the sound. At least now I know that I am a good lover and husband. The problem wasn't me. The days that followed were full of disappointment. 2 days later, the reporters left my quiet street. The hospital contacted me and informed me that Kate wanted some pajamas. I regretted missing that detail. She would have to endure the humiliating hospital gowns instead. 2 days later, her father called me. He apologized for his daughter's behavior and hoped that we could remain in touch to improve our relationship. He reminded me that he has another daughter who recently got divorced. Sorry, Dad, it's just too strange. 4 days later, he appeared on the news again. Amar, not so big deal, was released from the hospital, but it was revealed that he was a serial cheater. The pleasure I felt hearing that, and learning that his reconstructed manhood was unlikely to function properly, was undeniable. Towards the end of the week, I had an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Barton, or Sarah as she insisted I call her, approached me for help in her divorce case. She had heard rumors that I might have some evidence that could assist her. I explained that while it may be true, I couldn't reveal anything without exposing myself. She understood and apologized for asking. I assured her that there was enough circumstantial evidence for her case without my involvement. However, if I am proven wrong, I will persuade her to return and reconsider my offer. Her sadness tugged at my heartstrings. I played her a video file of the aftermath of the explosion, in which her husband's screams filled the air. At first, she cowered in shock, but soon she regained her composure. Suffice it to say, she didn't leave with much sadness. Being the helpful person that I am, I invited her to reach out when she was feeling down again. And yes, that wasn't the last time I saw Sarah Barton. The last unexpected visit came from a detective I had spoken 2 months ago. On the day of the incident, the detective vanished, leaving only his jeans and his shirt behind. Hey son, I won't come in. I just wanted to let you know that if there's insufficient evidence, I recommend closing the case. Expressing my gratitude, I watched as he turned to leave but then looked back. Listen, I will retire at the end of the year. If I return after that, will you tell me how you did it? I simply smiled and wished him a good day. Kate's letter arrived the following Tuesday. My dear Dave, I cannot express how deeply ashamed and sorry I am for what I did to you. I completely understand why you couldn't bring yourself to visit me, and I sincerely forgive you. I never fully comprehended the possible consequences of my actions. I never imagined that my parents would disown me. I know that I have lost your love, trust, and respect forever, and it pains me more than words can describe. I will understand if you never want to speak to me again, but it might aid in your recovery if you allow me to explain why I did what I did. Just know that it was entirely my fault. The doctors say that I won't be able to speak normally for a long time, if ever. They have mentioned an experimental stretching technique that could potentially restore some function. I hope it works so I can go back to my career as a distraction from the loveless and childless future that currently awaits me. If there's anything you want in the divorce, I will sign it. And if you could find it in your heart to keep me on your health insurance for the near future, I would be eternally grateful. Farewell, my love. I wish you nothing but happiness in your future. I hope I haven't completely ruined your life. Yours truly, Kate, aka your cheating wife. The letter moved me so deeply that I immediately reversed my decision and sent her pajamas to the hospital. Now, where did I put Mick and Pete's phone numbers? Do I owe them a beer? Perhaps a keg?